Christopher, thank you so much for your time this evening. Before you paint us the picture of what you found, you were the director from 1984 to 1992. Can you paint us a picture of how vibrant and how important the Joburg Art Gallery was, not just to the art life of Johannesburg, but just its importance in that art landscape of Southern Africa?
Well, I was fortunate enough to join the Johannesburg Art Gallery at a moment when it was being expanded with a new building. It was a moment of change within South Africa, and I was able to come into that space and introduce a number of exhibitions. I put together a staff which was very excited, and we were able to turn the Johannesburg Art Gallery into something of a center for the art focus within certainly Johannesburg, and I like to think even beyond that, with a huge number of people coming, a very vibrant education program, and the wonderful works of art that were brought out on show were complemented with a series of contemporary exhibitions which we held regularly. And it certainly was a space where people acknowledged that this is where art happened in South Africa.
Now, from what you understand, what has happened since then? You visited the art gallery recently and you were quite saddened by what you found, a building that's really hanging on by a thread.
Yes, it's a tragedy, I'm afraid to say. The building, which is a very important building from an architectural point of view, designed by Edward Lutyens, a well-known architect of the time, and a collection which is bar none. And I walked into the space to find that the building has collapsed. It's, in my view, a ruin. The water is poured in from various roofs which have not been properly restored or looked after. The new space that I oversaw at that time is locked away and is a disaster. And I you know, sadly, we're watching what is taking place in Ukraine, and I see these amazing buildings being destroyed, and I can't help feel saddened to think, oh my goodness, right here in Johannesburg, in South Africa, this jewel, this gem of a building is collapsing. But that's not the real issue. The real issue is the works of art contained within it, which are priceless, not in terms only of money, but in terms of the heritage which they represent, in showing a new generation of South Africans how important it is to understand what creative culture, art, design is part of our makeup and should be conserved, preserved, and shown to future generations. So those works of art, in my view, are in extreme danger. And the message that I bring is take them out of that building, put them in a place of safety, and let's argue about what should happen thereafter.
There has been talk for some time, though, that the Joburg Art Gallery probably needed to move from where it is. But like you said, the building that it's in is part of that history that it reflects, isn't it? Would you suggest that a move out of Joburg Park is probably what needs to be done? And even if many millions, if not billions, are spent in trying to fix the building, getting people to visit it in an area that is also not being looked after very well, it might just be a waste of money to begin with.
I'm afraid that's the reality. I clung on to the belief that the Johannesburg Art Gallery should remain where it was when I was there in the 80s. I said it is at the junction of north, south, east, and west, and that's where people could come and visit it. But we have to take into consideration the neglect of not only the area, not only the building, but the area itself. And I would certainly advocate for a new thinking around what space and where the Johannesburg Art Gallery might be reconstituted. And as I've said, there are all sorts of ideas. I'm working on a project personally, but there are many other projects that people are talking about, places, spaces. But at this moment, we need to take those works out, put them in a place of safety, let the politicians argue amongst themselves as to who and why and what. I don't care about that. I care about the artworks themselves before it's reconstituted in a space which is accessible, and where those works of art are safe.
Now, according to a follow-up article to the one that you were quoted in, there's a follow-up article in the Daily Maverick where they quote a city spokesperson who says that a team of structural engineers commissioned by the Johannesburg Development Agency conducted an assessment of the state of the building, and it seems that there have been architects that have been appointed as well. And now the argument is about how they move these very important collections and where they keep them until this process is complete, which might take some time. But I just wanted to ask you a question before I let you go. We saw a lot of our museums and heritage sites struggle, not just during the pandemic. The writing was on the wall even before the pandemic made it difficult for them to eke out some kind of an existence with people visiting. But you see the rise and rise of these big art fairs that happen in big conference centers, and it really attracts the well-heeled and the very cool and trendy people. I'm sure you would argue that there is a place for that, but it cannot take the place of museums and heritage sites like the Johannesburg Art Gallery, that in and of itself is there to make these collections open and accessible to people from all walks of life.
Yes, quite so. I mean, museums around the world are having to redefine who they are, what they are, how they perform, how they engage with communities, what manner in which they bring those artworks into a space where people find them intelligible. And I think that's where we've got to concentrate and look at the future, not look at the past, not get locked up into, well, we're in a post-colonial discussion with this, with that, with the next thing. We've just got to take a grasp on how we can most creatively put together a space where artworks can be presented and how they can be accessible and how they can be made intelligible, as I've said, even through the use of technology, and forget about trying to resurrect the past, but look to the future.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Former director of the Johannesburg Art Gallery, Christopher Till, joining us there from the Wild Coast. We thank him for his time.